and these can be permanent or temporary conditions. So a visual impairment of some sort that keeps them from reading traditional print material. So if they can't pick a novel up off of your shelf in regular print and read it, they would qualify for our service. A physical impairment or illness that's keeping someone from holding a book or reading material for some reason. One thing, an example I like to use, if somebody's going through like chemo treatments and they're just too weak to hold a book temporarily, they could qualify as a temporary participant in Talking Books. Or then a reading disability, and this is the federal definition here, resulting from an organic dysfunction, which that's a call for a medical doctor, so you don't have to worry too much about that. On top of that, so individuals can qualify or institutions can qualify if they serve individuals that meet those requirements. So nursing homes, hospitals, independent living centers could all qualify as institutional accounts because they probably have, or if they have people on site who meet those qualifications. Not covered, which we get questions a lot, people who are just simply illiterate, who just never learned how to read, would not qualify for our service. So like I said, we circulate books, equipment, all through the U.S. mail. So our audiobooks and audio magazines that we circulate go free U.S. postage, free matter for the blind in the U.S. Postal Service. They go out in cases like this. And inside you've got a cartridge. So this is American Bloomsbury. But the cartridge has a flash drive. It's a modified flash drive that slides right into the player. And we also send out players free to patrons. Let me get that right. So this is our digital player. Whoops. Sorry.
Volume up. To increase the volume by one step, press the volume rewind. Press this rewind button once.
So if there's not a book in there, every button's going to tell you what it does because we're working with visually impaired people for the most part. Buttons are big, they're easy to press, they're easy to distinguish from each other. And basically to play a book, all you've got to do is...
American Bloomsbury, Louisa May Alcott, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Margaret Fuller.
You just pop it in and start playing it. You take the book out in the middle of the book and put it back in. It should remember where you're at and start playing from there. They run on battery. They also have, mine's plugged in right now, so they can also be plugged in. They've got a nice little handle for you to carry it around and move it. So these are the current generation of players. There's new, hopefully in the next 5 years, I'll be able to show you something really cool and really new, but that's what we've got at this point. So like I said, those are all circulated free in the mail to patrons who need them. We also circulate Braille books and Braille magazines. For Braille books, we contract that out through the State Library of Utah. Braille magazines come through the actual National Library Service. For books and for magazines, people subscribe to titles they want, and they just show up monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly on their doorstep. So that's how the magazine circulation works. Basically, our collection is that of what you'd find at a public library. So we're just a more public library of accessible materials, of audio and Braille formats. We do also have a recording studio where we can produce Kansas interest books. So a lot of the books on the Kansas Notable Book List we try to record and make them available. And those are available nationwide, not just locally. And some magazines as well. So Kansas Magazine, Kansas Country Living, some of those magazines we record here in-house as well. We have different accessories to help people. We've got a remote control for the player. There's a breath switch, so if people have mobility issues. We've got headphones. We can also help get people set up with a currency reader through the Department of Engraving. So just a lot of extras beyond just the books and players that we can help people out with. Also, if you've ever got questions about accessibility, we're trying to get a stronger list of that together, but you know, as a reference point, we're here to help you out. And then I talked about the circulation in the mail. We also have a web download option for patrons to get their books, and that's called BARD, and that's the Braille and Audio Reading Download website. So people can download audio books, audio magazines, and electronic Braille from BARD and onto their computer, put it on a flash drive and play it in their player. Or they can download the BARD mobile app. So if they've got a tablet or a smartphone, they can download the books directly to their device and listen to them from there. Basically, it gives them the entire collection on demand right then, right there, because the Postal Service isn't always the most consistent in getting things there on time. So, you know, we average 4 days to get something to somebody across the state. That's our statewide average, but sometimes it takes 2 weeks. So we do our best, but once it gets out of here, it's out of our hands. So that's the big benefit of BARD. They don't have to wait for anybody to return it, and they don't have to wait for their postman to deliver it. Excuse me. To get patrons signed up, they have to fill out an application. It's fairly simple. They don't actually have to fill it out. Somebody has to fill out an application, and it has to be signed off by a certifying authority. So that is somebody who, by the list that NLS has provided, can certify that this patron meets the requirements of eligibility for the Talking Book service. So eye doctors, nurses, social workers, and in cases of visual or physical impairment, it can also include librarians. So if you have somebody that wants the service and you feel comfortable signing off on it for them, that would be an opportunity for you. It's available online. We can get you paper copies, but they must be certified. The one thing, doctors have to be the ones who sign off on reading disabilities. So that's the one thing that other people can't sign off on. But for visual and physical impairments, the list is pretty long and pretty inclusive. As well as, so I talked about individual accounts, but you can also have institutional accounts. So if there's a nursing home in your area that you think could benefit from this, they would have to fill out an account as well, and then just the site administrator would be the certifying authority for that. They can keep players on hand, and they can order books as needed. They could subscribe to magazines as an institutional account. There are also the opportunities for an institutional account for public libraries, but that's going to be as a demonstration site account. Some of you I know have accounts, but basically we still give you a player. We can set up book delivery however you want, just to kind of, we could just circulate new ones out, or we could wait until you want something to send you out a book. But you could you could have that on hand to demonstrate. If you wanted to set up a display at any point, you would have that there ready for you. You could also apply for a demonstration BARD account. It gives you the full, you get to look at BARD all the way, but you can only download like 5 books. These are books that NLS has, that were created by NLS that they've put on BARD specifically for these purposes. But you can still show somebody how to download from BARD, how to play it on an iPad, anything like that. You know, the one thing I keep trying to push when I talk to librarians is the point that, you know, your patrons are our patrons. We're here as to help supplement the service you're already providing to your patrons. So if you're doing outreach if you're doing home delivery and you have a patron who maybe stops their home delivery because they're not reading stuff, Maybe there's somebody that we need to be in contact with. If you've got people who read specifically large print materials or only audiobooks that might be related to a vision problem, we might be able to supplement the collection that you have with what we've got here. You know your patrons, you know your communities. We can't know everybody up in Highland or out to Bird City. You know, we are here in Emporia, so we've got a kind of limited scope on who we see. So we appreciate any help that you guys with your boots on the ground can provide to us. In that sense, we can provide you with posters, brochures, info sheets, applications, anything that you want on hand. We can help get you set up. I know I've sent some out. I think I sent some out to Linden, and I can't remember who else in Northeast. Bonner Springs, I think I might have sent some out to as well. But any of that information that you want, if you want a list of it, I'm happy to help you with that. And if you ever happen to be in Emporia, we're on the campus. We're here in the basement of the Memorial Union, and we would more than gladly show you around. I think our system is interesting, especially to librarians. It's not really interesting to other people. But the way that we select books and assign books and people get what they're looking for is interesting, and our shelving system's something that you've probably never seen before. So if you're ever in the area, we're glad to have you. But that's the quick and dirty overview of what we do, and I'm happy to take questions. I had a little trouble hearing people as they were introducing themselves, so if you've got questions, if somebody would repeat it to me, I'll help you out.
Yes, I will be happy to repeat questions. Okay, this is Gina from London. She's asking how long do people get to keep the players, and when do they need to return those?
The player, they just need to return when they cancel service. So if you know they're not using it, a lot of the times, you know, it's when people pass away, or if they're not cognitively able to focus on a book anymore, that's when they get those back. Books check out for, I believe, 3 months. Send out an overdue notice until it's 6 months overdue. There's no overdue fees, but we like to get the books back so other people can get them, except for religious texts, and those have no overdue dates. Those they can hold on to as long as they want.
Okay, we have another question. She's asking, can you explain more about the non-reader part of being excluded from services? I think you may have used the phrase illiterate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it's just that they have to, so if the only reason that you want a talking book is because you just don't know how to read and there's no disability associated with it, then you wouldn't qualify for service. Or if somebody, another example, if somebody reads and speaks Spanish fluently, but really wants to learn English and they think audiobooks are a way to do it, we're not the audiobooks for them.
There was a follow-up question from someone saying, why not?
I don't know. It's just that, because, I mean, it was established in what, 1904? I don't even remember. That's a tricky slope for me to start guessing on. We were established as a library for the blind, and I think part of it is copyright, because we were creating these specifically for, this is how we get around the copyright rule. We're creating these specifically in an accessible format for people with disabilities. That's what the copyright law allows us to do. And so if they don't have a disability, technically they shouldn't be using it.
Yeah, we have another question. He's asking, what is the quality of the recordings? Is it similar to something you would hear on Audible or CD?
So the stuff that comes out in the blue cases, this comes from the National Library Service. So they have a professional level recording studio that they record books in. They also get a bunch of commercially produced audiobooks as well that they then mark up in the specialized format. So these are going to be professional level books. The ones that come out of our studio, I would call semi-pro books. We've got a studio, we've got recording, but we're using equipment, but we're using volunteer narrators to do that. So it's not going to be quite the same on these locally produced books, and we're not the only ones with a recording studio, but they are differentiated for patrons. So if they don't want any of these locally produced books, there's ways to take those out of searches and get just the professional quality stuff.
Thanks. We have another question coming.
I just wanted to know if there's an online catalog of the titles.
Is there an online catalog of the titles?
Yep, there is. Let me find you can find it if you go to the State Library website. If you go to the Talking Books link, you can find our online catalog, but the website is obnoxious. It's WebOPAC, WEBOPAC .klas, KLAS.com/KSTB. So it's probably easier just to go to the State Library website and find our catalog.
Do we have any other questions for Michael?
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, if you're signed up and you've ever received one of these in the mail, this is our bi-monthly new editions, basically, catalog that NLS produces. So this is new books categorized by subject that came out in the last 2 months that should be available for checkout for patrons.
Great, thank you. You mentioned that. So if people want to get the promotional materials from you, how should they do that? Should they just drop you an email?
Drop me an email, because I've got a list that I made of things that we have on hand of posters and brochures.
Okay.
It's not too terribly descriptive, but.
Okay, and your email address is?
Michael.lang, Lang, @ks.gov.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes. He's asking about volunteer readers. If we have somebody who's interested and would be willing to come to Emporia, do you have applications? Or?
We do, and that's also available on our website. Right now, we are attacking a backlog of recorded material. So we're not taking new readers currently because basically every time somebody left a position, they left 5 or 6 books floating out there. So we're trying to get those done before we start taking on new volunteers. But if they're interested, they can still come in, send us the application, and if they want to, we do an audition process. So if they wanted to come in and do that, even if we didn't have positions available, that we could have them run through it, because sometimes it's just different than people think it's going to be. When you get into the booth in front of the microphone, reading off an iPad, it's different than what they might expect.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions? Okay, I don't see any more questions. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us and the information. And I saw lots of people taking notes, so you may have some emails in your inbox.
Email me, call us. We're here, so stop by sometime.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all.